Jay with COMANCO here, and right now we will be discussing the basic usage of a Leicester G7 wedge welder, the safety do's and don'ts, and the standard operating procedure to creating a fusion weld. Let's get started. First things first, when starting up your unit, place the welder on its face and allow the heat from the wedge block to rise through the nip roller channel. We'll be using a 220 volt power source. Plug your unit in, flip on the on button. You'll see the display automatically light up. Hit the up or down buttons to highlight your speed control, which is the top section indicated by the speedometer gauge icon. Once it's highlighted black, adjust the speed accordingly with the push knob to the type of material you're welding with. So I will be going at 17 feet per minute. Mind you, after 5 seconds, the screen locks back out and the black highlighted square disappears. Next, hit the down button to highlight the heat wave icon. Use the push knob to adjust your desired temperature. I am going 60 mil high density polyethylene, and we will be welding at 851 today. Now that your set points have been made, press and hold both the heat and motor buttons to begin the heat welding process. The alarm will sound, letting you know the component is indeed on. When the unit is standing on its face, allow temperatures to rise to your specific set point. Heating up to set point normally takes around a couple minutes. Now that our set point temperature has been reached, it's time to load the unit with our material. Today I'm using 60 millimeter high density polyethylene. Place the unit down in welding position and load your first sheet. With all fusion welders, we have our bottom sheet on the left and our top sheet on the right. Always load in your bottom sheet first by tilting the unit to the right and feeding the sheet through the lower part of the wedge block channel. Make sure the bottom sheet is up and over the lower contour roller assembly under the wedge block and pass through the nip roller channel. Remember, the heat of your wedge will automatically start melting plastic. To circumvent this, we manually roll our wedge welder back and forth at least a foot or so as we load in our top sheet. First things first, we're always going to load our bottom sheet. Your bottom sheet is always going to be the sheet to the left of you. Loading this thing, we stick our sheet right up over the contour rollers, under the wedge block, in through the nip roller channel, and on the way through. Remember, as you're loading this, your temperature is set to 850 degrees Fahrenheit. If you let that thing sit here for just 5 seconds, it could melt right through that sheet. In order to prevent this, all we do is manually roll it back and forth. So with the bottom sheet, we're coming over the contour rollers, under the wedge block, in through the nip roller channel, and we're manually rolling it back and forth. Make sure the material goes all the way to the back of the frame. So once you get the bottom sheet loaded, manually roll it back and forth, and now we're ready to load the top. When loading in our top right-hand sheet, make sure wedge material this time passes over the front travel roller, over the top of the wedge block, under the contour rollers, and in through the nip roller channel. Now that we have our bottom sheet loaded, we're manually rolling it back and forth to prevent any kind of burnout. We bring in our top sheet. What we're doing with our top sheet is we're going up and over the frame, over this front travel roller, in through the channel, over the wedge block, under the contour rollers, and in through the nip roller channel. All we're doing is manually rolling that back and forth all the way to where you want your start point. We're engaging and going into seam. Once the 2 sheets of material have been loaded, pull the welder back to the start of the seam, engage the nip lever, and the unit will take off on its weld. Make sure your welder stays on course and that both sheets of material are all the way to the frame wall of unit. You may need to steer the unit a little if it gets off course with a tug of its handle. After you've gotten to the end and finished your seam, always disengage your nip lever first when coming out of the weld before the last of the remaining material runs through. This will prevent any marring of the wedge block tip and promotes better welds. Once the unit has been removed from the seam, tilt it back up on its face and allow the unit to cool standing up, again prolonging the life of our upper contour roller bearings. We engage our nip rollers, and we're coasting. You may need to steer it with your handle to get it on track every now and then. Watching our temp drop lower. 815 is our low drop from 851. Pretty good. Coming to the end of the seam. The most important thing at the end of the seam, always disengage your nip rollers first. So at the very end of the seam, sometimes you may need to press down on the frame, disengage your nip lever, get the material out, set it back up on its face, let all that heat rise up through the nip roller channel. You're gonna have all that heat rising this way as opposed to up in your bearing grease. This prolongs the life of the bearing grease. Now that the job has been completed, it's recommended to blow out any particulates from the wedge block channel that may have accumulated during the welding process. Take a small wire brush to the nip roller teeth and remove any remaining plastic or dirt that may reside. You may need to slow down the motor to get a deeper cleaning. Press the button again, remove the lock, turn your dial. 2.6 is the slowest it can go. Now we can clean our teeth. After the unit's been cleaned, you may shut it off by pressing and holding both the heat and motor buttons till the alarm sounds again to shut off the component. Finally, hit the main power switch off, and the unit is ready to be stored away until the next job. We hope you've gotten something out of this tutorial in which could be applied to the field. In summary, COMANCO hopes you do well and stay safe out there.